Hello, and welcome to Through the Big Book with Dr. Ben. My name is Ben, and I'm an alcoholic. So in this episode, we'll be starting how it works in Chapter 5 in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So if you guys have ever been to an AA meeting before, you've undoubtedly heard this passage read. If you've been around for a while, you've heard it probably thousands of times. This is these first two pages are the ones that have all the steps on them. And so, a lot of times people will kind of skip through the book, thumbing around to find these pages, to find what the steps are. Because, here we are 58 pages in, or if you're doing the doctor's opinion, the prefaces, or the preface and the intros, forewords, forgive me, then you're on 70 pages or so, 75, 80, I don't know exactly. But nonetheless, you've been thumbing through the book for a while, and you're finally getting to these steps we've been hearing all about. So it's kind of an exciting thing. Where I got sober in Oklahoma City, we had a meeting where in the morning somebody would stand up and recite this. They would recite how it works all the way through the ABCs. So I cannot do that. I can probably dabble with it and maybe get 60% of it or so, but nonetheless, it's a really popular couple of pages, and so let's dig right in. It says, "Rarely have we seen a person fail who's thoroughly followed our path." So that means by doing all of the steps, not skipping four, not, you know what I'm saying, thorough. "Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program, usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves." Now, I've heard a lot of jokes involving that. What is it? Who's constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves? If you've gotten to this point in the program and you're asking yourself that, you're capable of being honest with yourself. I think what they were referring to is people who have lost cortical function and don't have the capacity to make decisions for themselves. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what they're really referring to here. But from my understanding, but otherwise, we're all capable. Anybody's capable of being honest with themselves. It says there are such unfortunates; they're not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They're naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Okay, so that's the second time we've talked about honesty in this one paragraph, because that's the spiritual principle that step one is based on. And so that's what our whole foundation is based on, is honesty. That when we're not honest, the whole foundation starts to crumble. And we have to build a program on honesty. That's just ground zero stuff. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity, again, to be honest. So, can't overstate the importance of honesty in a program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Doesn't matter if you're on day 1 or day 1,001 or day 1,000,001. Honesty is just absolute. It's a 100% absolute in this. And something I heard from a spiritual teacher that I like to watch once a week or more, he said that not everything true needs to be said, but everything said needs to be true. I love that. Anyway, so then it says, our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we're like now. That's also kind of what a lot of the stories are that you'll hear on a speaker meeting. Like if somebody gives their story or speaks their story, that's what you'll hear, is what it used to be like, what happened, as in what they did during the steps, and what they did to get sober, and then also what it's like now. I don't share a whole lot normally. I probably should share more on what my life is like now, but I don't. I try to focus on the process more than the rewards or the fruits or whatever you want to say. So it says, if you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. So you have to ask yourself at this point, are you willing to do whatever it takes? Are you ready? Are you willing to do a 4-step? Are you willing to do a 5th step? Are you willing to make amends with people you've harmed? Are you willing to do a 12-step and get out there and knock on some doors and help some other people get sober? Any length to get it. If so, then you're ready to take certain steps. It says that some of these we balked, which means I don't really want to do that. It says, we thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. So what they're talking about here to me is holding on to our old will, holding on to our old ways, and saying, and balking at some of the steps, or do you know what I mean? Like shirking them, saying, I don't want to do that. That's not for me. Made a decision to do this. That's a bad attitude with a lack of willingness. And when we have that, it's just really hard to get any progress done. We got to let go completely of all this stuff, of all of our old ideas. Because like they say in the meetings, if any of them were working for us, we wouldn't be in the condition that we're in, right? So remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, and powerful. Without help, it's too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. So if I give a half measure, which means I half-ass it or only put in half the amount of work, I get nothing, not half. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. So I just want to talk on that for just a second. I was exposed to AA at a very young age, subjectively. I think 16 was my first meeting, or 17, something along those lines. And I absolutely did not give this thing my all. I didn't give it much at all. I showed up a couple of times, and it didn't magically make me sober, and so I just didn't think that it worked for me. And then I came back and I'd do, the first 2 steps, and then I'd get distracted, whatever. And then, when I was in college, I got through about the first 10 steps, or 11 steps, if you will, but I never did a 12-step. I never wanted to work with anybody because I was working on my career of becoming a physician, and that was my number one priority. Staying sober but I just didn't have time for anybody because I'm too important now, and I just don't have time to deal with any of that, And what do I have to offer anyhow? I don't really know this stuff that well, and I kind of just went to myself. And so staying sober on 11 steps I would, from my experience, call a half measure. And so that's just my experience with it. And now that I'm doing 12-step work, breezing through a sobriety date that I had never passed before was no problem, because I'm focusing on going 100% on this program. Okay, now I'm just going to read what it says here and just touch on the base of the spiritual principle involved in each step that I pulled from online. So it says, here are the steps we took which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we are powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. Now, the spiritual principle is honesty. Step 2, came to believe in a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. That's hope. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Faith. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Courage and action. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. That's integrity. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Willingness. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. Humility. 8, made a list of all persons we'd harmed, and became willing to make amends to them all. That's brotherly love. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. That's justice. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Perseverance. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Spirituality. 12, having had a spiritual awakening, as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. That service. So then it says, many of us exclaim, "What an order! I can't go through with it." But don't be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We're not saints. So what that's saying is we're all going to fall short. No matter how hard you try on this, you're going to screw it up. We all screw it up. We all fall short, and we're always going to. But we have these spiritual ideals now that we can shoot for. And just because we're never going to get 100% doesn't mean we don't need to try for it. Because the better I can execute all of these spiritual principles in my life, number one, the better my life will be from a selfish standpoint. Number two, the better everybody else's life around me will be. In my household, to my close family, to my distant family, obviously to the people I work with, people in the gym, and so forth, So, so don't be discouraged if you fall short. The thing is, when that happens, not if, when that happens, you dust yourself off, you get back up, you get back on the horse, and you get back after it. We just don't quit. You'll hear in meetings all the time, keep coming back. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. This thing is not easy. It is very simple, but it is not easy. So expect to fail a lot. But know that when it happens, that it's okay. It's a normal part of the process. And by you getting back up and dusting yourself off, you're getting stronger and you're getting better. And you will be able to stay sober much easier, more effectively for a longer period of time with more fruit as a result. So, it says the point is that we're willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we've set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Now that sentence is often cherry-picked, where they take the spiritual out and they say progress, not perfection. And it's often used as a loophole in order to justify bad behavior. Now, if I screw up and do something I'm dishonest, which has happened, I need to make amends with that person immediately. I need to say, hey, I can't believe it, but I lied about that. I'm going to fall short. I'm going to make mistakes. But the difference is today is that I can do that. I can make right that dishonesty and say, I can't, I'm embarrassed. That happened. I still fall short, but at least I have the solution today. It doesn't mean that I go out and hurt people and, whatever, and say, well, it's progress, not perfection. At least I didn't kill them. It's progress, right? No. It's spiritual progress. We're talking about, by spiritual progress, we're talking about all these things, the spiritual principles I just named off for each step of honesty, hope, faith, courage, and action, integrity, etc. That's what we have that's what the spiritual progress is about. So our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear three pertinent ideas. So they're talking about more about alcoholism, we agnostics, and then the personal adventures before and after. That's going to be like A Vision for You, Dr. Bob's Nightmare, Bill's story, all the stories in the back, that kind of a thing. And then it says A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives, otherwise known as step 1. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism, or step 2. And C, that God could and would if he were sought. Step 3. So another way I've heard that said in meetings, my old sponsor, Hal Vorse, used to tell me, he said, I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. And that pretty well sums it up. So that is the intro to how it works. On the next episode, we'll be going into step 3, which is a very exciting, very useful step. And so I'm really looking forward to diving into that. And so thanks again for joining me on Through the Big Book with Dr. Ben. I'm Ben, and I'm an alcoholic. And I'll see you on the next episode.